On today's Locked On Royals Padres crossover, we're talking about the trade deadline, which is around the corner a little bit, depending on your perspective of time. But who upon our teams would we look to sell, and who would we keep our eye on in the buy department for our teams? All coming up on today's Locked On Royals Padres crossover.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Royals Padres crossover podcast. I'm your host from Locked On Royals, Rylan Stiles. That's Javier Reyes at Jalapeno over there, host of Locked On Padres. We're doing our weekly crossover podcast where we get a little bit more granular on the landscape of Major League Baseball. Javi, how are you doing today?
I'm going through the motions. You know what I mean? Like I'm hanging in there. I'm doing pretty good overall. Part of that has nothing to do with baseball. Actually, basically all of it has nothing to do with baseball based on the fact that people who are watching the video see that I am still wearing my hat. Don't worry. It's still tough out here. Hopefully they won that first game against the Nationals though. Shout out Yu Darvish. But yeah, not the greatest of times, but I must tell you some other good life developments, and some of those life developments. Oh, I love it when Boston teams get flamed on the internet. Don't you love it, Riley? Come on, just admit it. You love it. I know this is basketball, but just Boston, isn't it great when you see them suffer? Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, they do lose their mind, so it is a lot of fun to kind of watch the madness unfold. I agree.
Yeah, it's great stuff. And I'm hoping that while the Red Sox look good now, and they just did beat my team, which is obviously, as you know, as I've said before, not exactly the greatest accomplishment. Hopefully they go back downwards as well. And we're going to be talking about kind of just where our teams go from here, because both of our teams are in not the greatest shape. And I'm very curious to see what you're going to say about yours, especially. And I know my listeners are going to be curious to say, how do we fix the Padres? Because everyone's always in my messages lately. This is the new thing: is DFA all these players, get rid of this guy, trade this guy. All right, but who are you going to acquire? And I think that's the big question. Even if we are just a little bit early on trade deadline talk, I like to bite into the pie before everyone has a chance to even get a seat at the table, if you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean, Javi, and that's exactly what we're doing here. I think that our teams are in a spot where we have figured out what they need, what they lack, what they are looking for, what they're trying to do at the deadline, to where our teams are in a position where it's more comfortable talking about the trade deadline than say other teams are. And especially, obviously the disclaimer as always that injuries can change all of this and can change what teams are looking for, or what teams are looking at the deadline. Javi, I'll just start with what's going on in Kansas City. Got swept by the White Sox over the weekend, which is never good, as you give me a lot of crap about the White Sox throughout the season of how bad they've been. So the good news is, though, that they did DFA Hunter Dozier, which was
I heard.
was a great move. This was the equivalent of you celebrating as Hosmer got DFA'd for the Padres, which we'll talk about a reunion with him later on. But I think it's great, and I think that it just is another way where the Royals are leaning into playing better younger players who have some semblance of a shot to be in the Kansas City when this rebuild is over, because Hunter Dozier had none. So, they still have Jackie Bradley Jr. And this makes me feel confident that they will attempt to find a new home for him, either via DFA or a trade, once Drew Waters is healthy and is back off the IL, because I think that they truly are going to lean into playing these youngsters as they should. Like, that's, I'm going to give them credit for it, but obviously it's not like groundbreaking stuff. It's kind of like doing what you're supposed to do, but still, it's better than doing what you're not supposed to do. So I got to give them a little bit credit there for DFAing Hunter Dozier and for getting this roster at a more entertaining level. Look, I mean, yesterday lost to the Tigers in game one, And it sucked to lose to the Tigers, obviously at home, and you're trying to get back on track, or and when we say get back on track, trying to get more respectable in the win-loss column. But that lineup, had like 6, 7 names in it that you were really intrigued upon what they brought to the table, both now and in the future. So like that makes it worth watching as this team continues to rack up L's. Even so, putting themselves out of contention, it's still worth watching because these young players are at least having a fighter's chance to be on this team the next time that they get to the postseason if they're able to figure out how to rebuild the team. So things are a mixed bag in Kansas City, because it's been the same thing all year where like you can have a night where Zach Greinke over the weekend goes and gives up two runs over 6 innings, and then Jackson Kowar, one of your young pitchers, shoves a little bit and gets 2 innings of no run baseball, but you lose 2-0. But that sucks that you lost 2-0, but there were still some bright spots upon it. It just seems like they cannot click at the exact same time, the pitchers and the hitters. And that's what bad teams do, so it makes sense. But Javi, talking about the trade deadline, I think that it's clear that the Royals are obvious sellers.
Yeah.
And I think that the biggest name to move on from is Aroldis Chapman.
That's right.
Do you buy into Aroldis Chapman? Do you buy into this idea that like, oh, the Yankees are stupid. They couldn't teach talent. They couldn't help talent grow. And now look at them thriving in Kansas City. Is this like a hot streak? Do you think that it was something that the Yankees did wrong? As someone who has seen a ton of the Yankees, has seen a ton of Chapman, do you think that there's something that is innately fixed with Chapman, or just a really hot streak right now and he's back on track?
I think that he's just had a little bit of a hot streak. It's still early. It's so weird because relievers, especially on top of just being the most volatile position in the game, like can go so month to month. Like this guy could get lit up for the Royals tonight and then all of a sudden not do great the next night. And then we're like, oh, I don't know, though. Is he actually someone that should be traded for? I think the Yankees just really needed to move on from that point. I think they already had like really great bullpen arms. Don't get me wrong. They've had their fair share of pitchers who have struggled once going there. And then once they left, they did better, et cetera. So there is a conversation to be had there. But I think for the most part, Chapman is just going to be, I mean, this happens every year. A reliever who's having a pretty good season and almost like a momentum thing. I'm not saying you shouldn't trade for them, but it's almost like, yeah, he might stink next year. Right. But if you're just looking at who's performing now, relievers, I feel like you have to be very much just look at the right now, like who's performing right now. Because Ryan Helsley of the St. Louis Cardinals, and I haven't checked his numbers in a while, that guy was like an all-star level closer last year. I think the best one aside from Edwin Diaz. And, I'm not trying to bring up the Edwin Diaz thing, but I'm pretty sure I have to check it right now. But Ryan Helsley has been like extremely not good from what I've seen. Let me see here. Yeah, 3.15 ERA. It's not terrible, but last year he literally finished the season with, let's see here, a 1.25. So like these things can go up and down. So some people might look at the idea of Chapman doing well and scoff at it and say it's just a hot streak for now. Well, hot streak for now is something when it comes to relievers. So I wouldn't begrudge teams saying, let's go get this guy. He's been great for a long time. Name value does matter. So yeah, maybe the Royals can at least get a something. Not necessarily a huge deal. I think that there might be some Royals fans out there who have been wondering why they didn't trade Salvador Perez maybe when they had the chance. Whit Merrifield probably being the better example, because that guy, I think we can agree on that. I remember when his market was heating up in 2020, you could have gotten something for him, but nowadays he's not even on the Royals. So that they were a little bit late on that. So I imagine Royals fans might be a little bit annoyed, a little perturbed by that. But I don't know, man. I think it should be interesting. Either way. And I think for baseball, yeah, he throws hard. He's kind of one of those big name closers. And it was very smart, I will say, for the Royals to just take a flyer on the guy, because if he did do well, you're going to be able to get something in return.
Yeah. So obviously do not want to trade Salvador Perez and never did, because you need somebody like,
yeah.
I get it. I get it. Technically speaking, just running it through a spreadsheet, like, oh, you could have gotten so much for Salvador Perez, but you need somebody, like have someone go to the ballpark for, and like that they recognize and that they can kind of remember. And it cannot be discounted that Salvador Perez never wanted to leave Kansas City and hopefully never will want to leave Kansas City. And you would then have on your roster a true Royals lifer who was here the entire length of his career. And that is very rare in franchises today in any sport. And so to get the opportunity to have that is worth more than some prospects who probably are going to fail. Let's just be honest. But as you mentioned, the egregious one was Whit Merrifield, holding on to Whit Merrifield year after year after year and acting as though you could contend during his contract was just idiotic. To then eventually trade him during the worst year of his career in every statistical category, both offense and defense. He had the worst year of his career last year in every way, shape, or form. Plus, was not vaccinated at the time of being traded, and so that just hindered all of his trade value because he just wasn't good and just isn't good. He fell off a cliff, and so you lost out on getting something for him. I think that for Chapman specifically, I think that the Royals will have no problem parting with him, and they shouldn't. I think the teams will have no problem trading for him because I think that he'll continue this hot streak, and the Royals have done a good job of putting him in position where he can succeed and put him in advantageous situations. I think that he's shown an ability to shut the door and like just come in and be nails. I think he's also shown an ability to kind of work in and out of trouble a little bit, which is encouraging that he can still get in and out of trouble, mainly the out part. And so when you go to the deadline, to me, what's changed with Chapman with his hot streak isn't like that he's going to get traded. I think that he was always going to get traded. What's changed is like you went from getting maybe a D plus C tier of prospect to maybe a C plus a B minus tier of prospect, which is great. If you can improve upon that just for signing a guy to a major league contract who has been around the block a few times. Like that's why you sign veterans on teams like this. And so that's awesome. And I think that teams, the reason why they're going to be interested in him, in my opinion, is not only is he pitching well this season, and he's on a situation, he's in a spot in his career where you don't care what happens next year. It doesn't matter if he falls off a cliff again next year or not. But also, if he is still riding a high at that deadline at the time of the trade, which is why I think that the Royals should act upon this pretty swiftly here. If he is still on that hot streak, you've got a guy to add to your bullpen who not only is pitching very well right now, but has been in the big moments, has been on the big stage and understands what it's like to both succeed and fail in those moments. And so he can help your bullpen. He can help give your manager an outlet to somebody who isn't going to be scared on that stage, which is very important, especially if you're running a young ball club that's kind of having some success right now, maybe out of the blue or maybe over your head a little bit. So I think that's great. I think that's going to be awesome to see where the Royals can improve their team just by signing a major league talent. Obviously, we're only talking about Chapman on the field. So on the field, it was a smart baseball move.
Absolutely, man. I agree.
Another name that the Royals might consider parting with is Scott Barlow. And he's kind of in the realm of what you're discussing also, where like this isn't his best season, but he has shown flashes in the past of being able to be an incredible reliever and an incredible arm out of your bullpen to save games and to close out games. So like this season for him, sorry, the stuff is all wacky. He has a 4.26 ERA, which is his highest of his career. But last year he was at a 2.18. The year before that he was at a 2.42. The year before that he was back in the fours. But like he went back-to-back years where he showed really good stuff out of the bullpen. And as a guy who got 24 saves last year on a really bad team. So I think that Scott Barlow, when you get him, is kind of twofold. He's shown an ability to be a guy that saves games. He also, of course, would not demand that role. So where you have a flexibility of putting him in a setup role or kind of like a fireman role as well. So I think that Scott Barlow could be interesting. Now, here's the thing. Do you want to sell him on this season where he's having like a 4 ERA, or bring him back and hope that he catches fire in a bottle next season, as you know he's capable of, or maybe his numbers look better by the deadline once he gets more innings and opportunity, because he has started to look better with the stuff recently. So I think that Barlow's another name to watch for Kansas City.
Yeah, I agree, and those are guys that maybe in some way maybe the Padres might be interested in. It depends how some of the guys in their pen go. But for the most part, pitching might not be exactly the world and the realm that my team is aiming for. But it should still be interesting for yours and see who they get in return. Yeah, it's a question of sell low or sell high. Do you wait another year, whatever? But don't sleep on relievers. That's always the easiest way to just kind of get some extra ammo at the trade deadline, especially if you're as non-competitive for like a wild card spot as the Royals seem to be.
Javi, who are some names on your roster that the Padres might be shopping?
Well, Ryan, I think
before you say that, Javi, I think that we should. I think that we should head on over to our good friends over at Sorare, because Sorare is awesome. It's our new sponsor. It's revolutionary in the fantasy baseball game marketplace, transforming fans into owners with officially licensed digital trading cards featuring players from across all 30 MLB teams. So you check out today by going to Sorare and using and playing in the game of the week. The game of the week is a twice weekly, 3 to 4 day cycle of game. At the end of the game's week, Sorare will put their managers into a leaderboard. And if you rank near or at the top of the leaderboard, you can win a variety of rewards, including Sorare Sacred cards, game tickets, merchandise, signed jerseys, VIP experiences, like meeting MLB stars. Prize Picks also depends and is incredible at putting you in these competitions to have varying prizes based upon those competitions. Head on over to Sorare.com/lockedon. That's Sorare, SORARE.com, to draft your team of free player cards, to set up your lineup and start competing today with epic rewards. Again, that's Sorare.com/lockedon to start playing today. Sorare.com/lockedon. Javi, we're back on this episode brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is awesome. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMB for $20 off your first purchase. Javi, what would the Padres be looking to sell?
Well, first of all, I don't think that they can sell, despite being in a very unique position, which is that your team has looked pretty horrid. A lot of your older players, not older as in like old, but the top people of your team have been underperforming for the most part. But they're all signed for like $80 bajillion deals, right? So like in a world where the Padres maybe didn't extend Manny Machado, maybe that would be a guy they'd be like, hey, let's try and get a little bit of ammo. We recoup next year, even though I don't think that they would do that anyway. Or say Blake Snell, who is a guy who's going to be a free agent after this season. Maybe you look to trade him, but this team is in buy mode. They've been in buy mode for 3 years now, right? Like this is just what they're going to do. They did it last year, obviously big time with Soto, did it the years before, even with players that probably didn't make sense for them to trade for in Adam Frazier, and years before that when they traded for Trevor Rosenthal. Remember him? Remember your boy? Yeah.
How about Tim
remember
Hill?
him? You remember him? Good old, yeah, of course. Good old Trevor. He was a guy that the Padres traded for. So, these things can matter. I think that the Padres, there's a lot of leading candidates. I don't think pitching is their area, especially right now. Like they're like top 10 in ERA, they're top 10 or top 5 in batting average against and whip. Even if I don't know if that'll get better, I think that your Lugos and your Michael Wacha's might decline a little bit, but even if they do, you're expecting Darvish and hopefully Snell and definitely Musgrove to kind of pick it up. So I don't think pitching is necessarily where they will go first, but given the candidates out there, I could see the Padres making a move. I think a player like Lucas Giolito, or in that tier, I'm not saying I like him. I have no opinion on him yet. I haven't crunched the data, but a guy that's probably not going to cost much and probably is going to be moved is who I think the Padres might go for. While an Alex Cobb is a pitcher that everybody's kind of familiar with right now. And he's probably going to be one of the top arms at the trade deadline, at least in my opinion, in my prediction. So I don't know if the Padres will be going that, especially within division with the Giants and all that, right? So I don't think that'll happen. But lower tier starting pitcher, maybe they want to boost the back of the rotation. Maybe Seth Lugo, his innings limit comes in and maybe that becomes an issue and that they don't want to start Nick Martinez. Maybe Ryan Weathers starts getting lit up. So I could see something like that being a move for them. But some other popular names, a lot of them from the White Sox, by the way. The White Sox are going to be probably the team that everyone predicts, oh, they're going to have a fire sale. That usually literally never happens, by the way. I don't know if you've noticed this. Every time we predict the team to have a fire sale, they never do. And I think that's partially because we just don't know the inner workings behind how complicated trades are. And I think another part of that is teams behind the scenes. You just mentioned you got to have someone to come to the ballpark. I think sometimes teams are like, all right, we'll trade everybody except one dude because we need to at least have a reason for people to come back, I guess, maybe. But for the most part, it doesn't always happen. Happened with the Cubs 2 years ago, for sure. They really did have an actual fire sale. They didn't trade Contreras for some reason, but they had a fire sale with Baez and Bryant and Rizzo and all those guys, right? So it's totally possible that the White Sox really do blow it up. I think basically a lot of players on the team will be available, though. Tim Anderson's the biggest name, Padres fans out there who are jerks are going to say trade Ha-Seong Kim and some whatever prospect for him, because Padres fans seem to hate Ha-Seong Kim for some reason. I do not understand why. It has never made sense to me. He's actually been one of the best batters on the team this month so far, and he's one of the team's best defenders. That's all I'm asking for. Just be average at the plate and great defender. Tim Anderson, while swag-tastic, and I could see him being that spark plug type of player to add to a team, like a team that just hasn't had everything going for them. You know, maybe I don't know a trade destination for him right now, but that type of player, but not necessarily as good of a defensive player as Ha-Seong Kim. So I don't know if that's the direction that they would go in. It would be intriguing though, because that would really bring the star-studded Padres to another level of star-studded, right? But I think the top name people will bring up for me is another White Sox, shocker, Yasmani Grandal, who is having a huge bounce back season. He's been good for a long time. He is a former Padre. I'm coming home. I'm coming home. I would love that. I would love that. He's going to probably cost a decent penny, but he is 34, right? And at 34, it's kind of not necessarily as easy to get teams to agree to trade for all this stuff. And considering he wasn't very good last year, I could see that the teams might be a little bit tepid in there, but the Padres, with their current catching situation, the Campizano Hive, we battled strong, but he's still on the IL. It's one of those, like, you know, the phantom ILs that happen where someone goes on there and you're like, yeah, it's a 10-day IL. He just sprained his hand or whatever. And all of a sudden it's like a month later. We're like, wait, what's going on? Where is this guy? I don't understand why he's not back yet. So the Padres are clearly in trouble. If I have to keep watching Austin Nola, it's going to drive me insane. So Grandal is probably the number one overall target. Just for people who are curious, this year he's basically been all the way back. He's always been a catcher that shows a lot of plate discipline, which is great. Padres certainly need some walks. Currently slashing .278 with a .347 on base and a .414 slugging. He's back after being pretty horrendous last year, probably due to injury. So Grandal is someone to look out for. And if you want to be funny, you could bring back Will Myers. That would be hilarious. And then there's some other guys out there like your Jock Peterson, who's on the trade deadline market literally every year, right? Dylan Cease, if the White Sox really do blow it up, will be another guy that people look into. But I think that's a little bit outside the Padres price range, especially for something they don't necessarily need. But that would probably be the number one, as of right now, who I predict will be the number one target for the Padres. There's some other people out there, Ahmed Rosario, if you want to get really deep with it. Maybe some teams trade for him. I don't think the Padres will. Maybe Jorge Soler if they're feeling really desperate and they need power in the outfield. Guys of that tier. But for the most part, that's what I see, man. And then the last names worth pointing out, forgot to say these guys just as general names. Corbin Burns of the Milwaukee Brewers and Willy Adames, for a matter of fact. Just because they're the Brewers, and even if they're leading their division, they might still trade their guy. Corbin Burns, who has actually looked like an average Joe this year. But bottom line is a Cy Young winner, so I'd keep an eye out for him. And I've been talking way too much, Rylan. So let me just conclude again. I think that Yasmani Grandal at this point is probably the Padres' top target, because the easiest position to replace, because I don't think anyone disagrees that Austin Nola is pretty bad.
The Austin Nola slander is real on this podcast.
I called him a Nepo baby on Twitter once. That's how mean I was.
Whoa.
That was mean. It was mean, but it was meant as a joke. Just want to be clear. But yeah, I called it that once.
That's not kind of you at all. But
it's not.
I do really like Lucas Giolito's stuff. I really like Lucas.
You're a believer still. He believes.
I believe in him. I do. Now maybe it's because whenever I watch him, he's carving up the Royals lineup, and like if you put him in if you put him in the NL West, maybe he wouldn't be worth a crap. But hey, buddy, I got a question for you.
Oh yeah,
it's a big one.
Oh, I love big ones. That sounded crazy.
Hey yo, what is the likelihood, 1 to 10, that Shohei Ohtani is traded?
0. Well, hold on. Trade deadline is when? I should probably look that up. What the trade deadline is? MLB Trade Deadline. You talk while I look this up, please. August 1st. So we got some time. So I'm going to take that back, and I'm going to go 3 or 4, because I don't know what the Angels will look like by then. But even still, I still think because this is not a well-run team that they will just be looking at the blockbuster power of having him on the team, and they'll trick themselves into thinking they can re-sign him. So I'll go 3 or 4. I forgot. We still got some time, but if the Angels are literally at all competitive and are in wild card range, then he's not getting traded. Although, man,
that would be fun.
Is there any more of a wild trade deadline piece we've literally ever had? Probably not. That would be absolutely nuts.
Yeah, that would be the best trade deadline target trade ever. That would be massive.
That'd be pretty rad. Even if it is for half a season. I know Soto's the biggest trade ever, especially considering you get him for multiple years. But man, like the Ohtani thing, it's like it satisfies both needs. You got yourself the pitcher and the batter. So it would be such a fascinating idea, I think, seeing him move at the trade deadline. So I think that's why you asked me. Admit it. You asked me because you're like, oh, I kind of want it to happen. I just want some excitement.
I want it to happen because I think that would break baseball. Like I don't know what you would give up. Like I don't know what anyone could give up that we'd walk away and say, well, the Angels got a lot in return for Shohei, who they probably weren't going to re-sign anyway, and the X team got Shohei. I think that it has to be one or the other in this kind of trade because he's just too good. Like you're only going to get half a year from him. And you might not feel confident that you can truly re-sign him, or at least not so confident you want to give away literally everything you own, which is what it's going to take to get Shohei. To where I think that unless he goes to a market where we say, okay, they for sure are going to re-sign him, they're either going to look like they got fleeced for half a year of Shohei, or the Angels are going to have to sell a tad low because they're only going to give someone half a year of Shohei. And we're going to say, why would you give up Shohei for that? You might as well just keep him and sell tickets and benefit from having the best player ever on your team. So I think that it's a difficult one to gauge, to where I think that GMs are going to be a little too risk averse on this. But hopefully I'm wrong, because I want to see it. I want to see what would happen. I want to see the downward spiral of trade deadline content after it were to happen, if it were to happen. So with that being said, we can agree that in all likelihood, Shohei's not going to get traded at the deadline.
Yeah,
I would put it at most at a 3, like you said, but more realistically at a 0. Honestly, even though I really, really want it to happen. No offense to Locked On Angels. I hope that the Angels are good, but I do just want to see what it looks like for that caliber of player to be traded. And so, with that being said, Javi, who do you think is the biggest name that we see get traded?
I think I smell the Corbin Burns thing, man. I really do. And I know that this is hating on the Brewers, but he's also not having his best season. He's looking a lot more normal. I don't know. I just feel like in fairness, if they did trade him, because he's looked a lot more normal and it looks like there might actually be some concerns there, might be savvy on their part to move on. So I don't know. I think that's the name though, but I think that Tim Anderson, in terms of the blockbuster factor, everybody knows who that is. That might be the actual big one to move, who I think is all but guaranteed to be moved. So that should be interesting.
Yeah, Tim Anderson would be interesting for sure, because he can just, like you said, he can provide more than just on the field production. He's gonna provide a different energy to your team and to your fan base and to what you're trying to do. And I think that is contagious. I think that if you're winning a ton of ball games and one of your players is out there giving you that energy and intensity night in and night out, it's going to rub off on at least half your ball club. And then you have a whole team of just guys playing at that intense level, which is very, very fun. Javi, coming up, we're going to talk about the power rankings. Who is slipping? Who is rising? What's happening with our Locked On Power Rankings? Plus our 3 stars and 3 duds of the week. But first, I want to say right now, but our good friends over at Gametime. Javi, how are you doing today? And are you interested in hearing about Gametime? Because I know you are. Gametime is a ticketing app which is incredible, that you should go download right now to try out and buy tickets there, because they have all the lowest prices at the last minute tickets guaranteed. You even get a view from your seat. They have everything from football, basketball, baseball. They have concerts, they have theater, they have comedy tickets. Everything that you want that costs a ticket, you can make it to the show with Gametime and get a view from your seat, with also cancellation protections on your ticket, job loss protection on your ticket. They're going to have you covered there. And you can even just go ahead and buy these tickets at the last minute at the lowest prices guaranteed. So you're not stressing. You're just getting hyped for your event. And if you somehow find a better deal, which you won't, but if you somehow do, then you can get a price match with 110% of the difference credited to you at Gametime. So check it out today. Gametime is great. They take care of you. Go to the Gametime app, create an account by going to gametime.com. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, create your account, redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB, and get $20 off of your first purchase. Get the Gametime app today with last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Javi, we're back.
Oh, yeah.
On this crossover, let's do our power rankings. So here's what they looked like last week when they got updated. Rays, Braves, Dodgers, Orioles, Blue Jays, Rangers, Padres, Brewers, Diamondbacks, Red Sox, Pirates, Angels, Twins, Yankees, Astros, Mets, Mariners, Cubs, Phillies, Guardians, and then 21 through 30 is Tigers, Marlins, Giants, Cardinals, Reds, Nats, White Sox, Rockies, Royals, A's. Javi, let's just do who are your three risers this week. So for me, again, I'm going to say the Rangers. I think that they should rise to the top three, all the way from 6, in my opinion. I'm going to say that the Yankees and the Mets are rising for me. I think that those are some pretty hot teams in baseball. What's going on for you?
Kind of the same thing here. I remember we talked about it last week, and my thing was Yankees and Mets. I thought it was too much of an overcorrection, in my opinion. I thought that, yes, the Yankees and Mets haven't been great, but I do like when doing power rankings to not just completely abandon what we thought before the season, especially in baseball. So I think that the Yankees have shown you they're still going to be steady. Yes, they're not necessarily blowing the door off the league, but they've had the best record in May. So I think that they deserve to be moved up. And I think we both agree that they should have been moved up before. The Padres, we'll get into them in a second. Rangers, I agree with you. I think that they're better than the O's. It's just that the Orioles are the most fun, right? They're the most fun team because of how many young players they have. Even the names, Gunnar Henderson and Ryan Mountcastle. You know what I mean? Like, they have like the name thing going for them too. And everyone loves Adley Rutschman. So, because we haven't had a catcher with MVP potential in a long time. So that's really cool. But I'd say that's a riser. And I'd say for me, I think you have to move up the Twins just a tad, because they do lead that division, right? They still do lead what's it called? The AL Central, even if it is a weak division. Bottom line is they've been beating players, and they just feel a lot more complete as a team than everybody else. I mean, I don't know about you, but have you checked the Cleveland Guardians offensive numbers? My lordy, 28th in batting average, 28th in on base, 28th in runs, 30th in home runs, and 30th in slugging percentage. Yeah, you remember how I kept defending this team heading into the year? Can't do that for a while. They look terrible on offense, even worse than my team. So I'd say that those are the biggest risers for me. And then Cardinals, I'd move up by like a spot or two. You know what I mean? Just because, in fairness, they do have really good players on the team. I don't want to totally give up on them. But otherwise, yeah, they've been pretty horrid.
Pretty horrid indeed. Javi, I do think that the Cardinals, I think that you're right on this. I think that they are heating up. Okay, hold on. I said heating up for Yankees and Mets, who I do think are playing hot baseball right now. I wouldn't classify the Cardinals as hot. They're simmering. There's something there. The Contreras stuff, is weird, but now it's kind of turned. It's now kind of turned though, because now he's getting curtain calls and now he's all jacked and juiced. So like it's simmering. I'll put it this way. It's to the point now where it would not shock me. It would not stun me if the Cardinals just go out here and are incredible. The last half of the season and gets back into the playoffs and then goes on a run. It wouldn't shock me. That would have shocked me like 2 weeks ago because they just look so downtrodden. So our fallers, Javi, I'll let you go first on the fallers since I went first on the risers.
You got to put Padres much lower. They got to be behind the Mariners. They got to be like 18th or 19th. They've been pretty horrid in a lot of ways. I think the Guardians need to be moved down another peg because If you're getting outplayed by the Detroit Tigers, that's pretty bad. They did just have getting swept by the Mets, so you got to move them down as well. And then I think we already agreed that everybody at the Locked On Network got way too excited about the Pirates. But even still, I wouldn't move them down a ton because they're still respectable. So if you want to say that they're middle in the pack, I don't hate you for that. You know, that's a fine opinion to have. And then I would say probably, oh man, what do we do besides that? Let me see here. I think I already said Guardians. And then I think, what is the Mariners? 17? So probably the biggest ones. And I still stand, and we said this last week, I just didn't get the Toronto top 5 thing. I was like, that's a good team. Good team. And I think that sometimes, yeah, they're 25 and 23, plus 7 run differential, which is one of the lowest of all the plus teams in run differential in the American League. But part of that also might be because it's a really tough division, but I just did not understand top 5 over Rangers. Like I was like heated when I saw that. I'm like, what are you guys watching? You know what I mean? Like it's just, it didn't make any sense to me. So Blue Jays, Padres, and the Guardians, in my opinion, have to be moved down.
All good calls. You know that I'm the biggest Pirates hater on this platform, so
Yes, you are.
I'm gonna have to go with the Pirates because I think that they should be bumped way down. So I'm gonna put them probably in the bottom 20s if I was having to get to do this myself, because I think that these are power rankings. These aren't standings. Like we can look at the standings. And on that same token, I would bump down the D-backs. Again, I think that this isn't standings. This is power rankings, and they're not a top 10 team. In my opinion. So I would bump those 2 teams down for my bump downs. My third bump down. Are you ready for this, Javi?
Mm-hmm.
I would bump down. Since you took away the Guardians from me, I would bump down the Cubs.
Yeah.
I'm not a big Cubs guy.
My Cubbies. They're my sleeper, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. It really doesn't.
Javi, this has been great. We went long and salvaged it somehow.
Hey, we prospered.
Well,
yeah.
it's actually it's like 40 minutes, so we didn't quite hit what we're supposed to. So we apologize to our bosses, but this was a lot of fun nonetheless. Javi, I want to end this with one question for you. This is our last topic.
Okay, let me see you. Look at me. Look at me in the face when you ask me this question. Yeah, I want to see you. What is it?
Is baseball moving too fast? And let me be clear. I just mean for the fans. I'm not talking about the science behind it, the injuries, or any of that, which we're gonna have to talk about coming up later on once the season's over and we have more data. But for the fans, like the reason I ask you this is because Sunday, all right, it's supposed to be Sunday night baseball. I had some things to do Sunday. I sit down and maybe or maybe not had a Mickey Old show. We're not going to talk about that. Nestled in. Sunday night baseball's over. At 7 o'clock, it's over. Is it going too fast? 7 o'clock, there's no Sunday night baseball on? Are you kidding me? 8 o'clock, it's over?
First of all, this sounds like some Central Time type of issues. So, you know, I do have to say that.
Yeah, and on the West Coast, it's over at freaking 3 o'clock. Sunday night baseball's over at 3 o'clock.
I'm not thrilled that we always gear everything towards the East Coast. I am a coastal elitist myself, and I admit that sometimes I think that's a little bit unfair to all the other folk living out here in this beautiful country of ours. That part, you will get no disagreement from me there. But that's just the fact of the matter. And for me, no, I don't think it's moving too fast. I think it's great. The end. Put a pin in it. Enough. Okay. I still need to wait, and I still think that it's good. We have too many games for people to be worrying about sometimes when it feels like it goes too fast.
Okay. Hey, yeah. That's fair. That's fair. I'm not gonna. Right. Okay, whatever.
That's right.
So, buddy.
Yeah.
Any final words or thoughts on this week in baseball?
Nope. Not really. And for those watching the video again, this is the fan base mindset. My friend Jinx here. That is why she is here. Just very depressed about the Pods. And I'm hoping that by the time people are watching this, they have won against the Nationals and maybe they can keep things going. But not the best state of affairs. And I don't know if it's going to be fixed. I'm not totally certain of that. I really am not. I think that they really might have jumped the gun, heavily investing in all these guys. And I said this, I am on record for saying this for a while about Soto, about the Manny extension, about the Cronenworth extension, about the Darvish extension. It's a lot of money and a lot of years to just pin in on what you have now. The future is uncertain. Don't listen to people who know what's going to happen a year from now. We don't. Nobody thought that Martin Perez would be good. Nobody thought that the Orioles' horrible starting pitching, that it wouldn't hurt them too much because their bullpen is literally like 2015 Royals level right now with guys like Cano and Bautista and all those guys. Like, they just shut everybody down. So as long as they go 4 innings, like, that's all that matters. So don't assume everything about baseball. I think that's the biggest mistake we make.
Thank you, Javi. That was a very passionate plea. And until next time, see ya.